The paradox of the procrastinating perfectionist. Being a perfectionist is daunting. The compulsive desire, which often borders on obsession to make sure that every tiny detail in your life is as perfect as possible, can be a difficult task to keep up. While at first glance, wanting to get just about everything right seems like an amazing way to power through life, the reality is often not so bright. When you're a perfectionist, everything seems doubly difficult. You struggle with handling in projects, obsess over the margins and spacing in the 2,000-word-long academic power you just wrote, and any sort of deadline becomes a nightmare. Perfectionism, defined as the practice of holding oneself to unrealistically high standards and becoming overtly self-critical if one believes that he or she hasn't met these standards. Years of research have proved that pursuing perfection in all aspects of life can be detrimental to both mental and physical well-being. It's a pain enough by itself. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the procrastinators, laid-back individuals who put off every task till the 11th hour and still somehow manage to scrape through. They have little expectations and always something better to do. However, if you bring these twin devils together and throw in a dash of procrastination in the confused mix of a perfectionist's life, all hell breaks loose. Imagine all of this, but with at least 8 times the intensity. These two trails don't seem to get along together at first glance, but very often one is a consequence of the other, and everything eventually ends up in an infinite loop. Imagine a scenario. You get out of a meeting full of amazing original ideas that you plan on implementing in subsequent work hours, or you take up a comparatively difficult topic for your research paper in hopes of scoring some brownie points and doing meaningful work which actually adds value to the existing body of academia. You commit to a deadline, your perfectionist streak at its very crest, and think of how well you want to see through to the end of this. Your vision is clear, your will is steadfast, your plan is foolproof, and your intentions are perfectly honest. But as the deadline draws closer, something changes. You still want the project to be flawless, a work of art. But somehow you start thinking about why you didn't start doing whatever you had planned a day earlier or an hour earlier. Something didn't go according to your very comprehensive, well-chalked out plan, and you can't stop thinking about how that one trivial fallacy might set into motion a destructive domino effect which disrupts your entire work calendar. You don't realize it then, but this is the beginning of the fatal spiral. You decide to take a break to clear your head, to make yourself stop obsessing about that minor mix-up. You eventually manage to somewhat convince yourself that it was in fact trivial and you should not let that get into your head. You start feeling better only to realize that the self-therapeutic session you just conducted cost you 2 hours and has now set you back even further from your stipulated start time. The therapy is immediately invalidated. The spiral starts manifesting slowly. The excitement you had felt slowly starts turning into apprehension and anxious dread. Frustrated, you reluctantly put yourself to sleep, but only after you convince yourself that you will make up for this debacle by finding more sources of inspiration and working extra hard tomorrow. You again have time. The perfectionist is back. The next day, however, is the same story. By the time the end of the workday rolls around, you realize you're in the same spiral again, only this time it's worse. This process repeats itself every day unless you slowly turn into a demotivated husk, furiously working under a ticking clock, and you can't find any similarity of the person who wanted to create a work of art a few days back. You scramble to finish your job. Maybe it isn't as bad as you thought it would be, but it definitely isn't even close to being as good as you thought it would be. And that is all that matters for you.